Vanakkam. Welcome to this video on biomechanics. In this video, we will be looking at biomechanics of the spine. More specifically, in this video, we will be discussing the muscles that are responsible for movement of the neck and the head, and muscles at the level of the neck and the back. The head in humans is placed at the top of the vertebral column. Already I mentioned that is a special nature of the human head in terms of the heavier weight when compared with the body weight. Right? When compared with other animals, the head of humans is bigger because they have a bigger brain. There is a purpose for this, of course. So, this head will have to be supported, and there is a very important constraint to maintain the level of the head at that level. So, the head should not fall like this, it should be stabilized. There are some constraints on the posture of the head and the neck, considered very critical for brain function, for general function of the body. The head is attached, we mentioned where it is. So, the occipital bone, at the level of the occiput there is attachment with the atlas, which is the first cervical vertebra, is it not? With the atlas, this joint is called as atlanto-occipital joint. We mentioned that. So, there is a very small amount of movement of flexion extension that is possible, but mostly its purpose is to provide a receptacle or to provide a seat to hold the head in space. It does not allow any other movement other than the small amount of flexion extension. This joint does not allow for any other movement. So, the main purpose seems to be stabilizing the head, right, balancing the head. So, it is the head is stabilized or balanced, moved and rotated, movement, lateral movement, front back movement and rotation movement, all are possible by the muscles that are present at the level of the neck, right. What are these muscles? One muscle is called sternocleidomastoid, right. What is this muscle? That is that muscle, is it not? Right. Its origin and insertion are as shown. So, attaches at that level, that, right. So, its origin is at the sternum or clavicle, and its insertion is the mastoid process, the temporal bone and the occipital bone. So, just below the ears, right, just at the level of the ear. What is the purpose? What is the action of this muscle? It rotates and tilts the head to the side. Rotate and tilt to the side. Very important function. You might wonder what is the purpose of this, right. So, when you tilt, right, you can tilt like this, lateral movement is possible, and you can also rotate like this. But the sternocleidomastoid, when it is contracting, it has a purpose where you can rotate as well as tilt. For example, I am interested in looking backward on something that is on my right side, like that. I am interested in looking at. Rotate and tilt. So, my head is tilted, at the same time it is rotated, looking at that direction. You also can look at the back like this. So, sternocleidomastoid can rotate and tilt the head to the side, and also of course tilt the head to the forward direction. So, individually when each one of them is performing, so there are two sides, right, the left side and the right side. There are sternocleidomastoid muscle on the left side and on the right side. When both of them are acting together, they perform flexion action. But only when one of them is acting, the other one is not activated at the same time, then it rotates the head to the opposite side. When this muscle is active, that is the look that you are getting, and when this muscle is active, that is the look that you are getting. right. Then you have the next muscle, that is semispinalis capitis, right. That is not clearly visible at the level of the neck. It is a deep muscle, difficult for me to show in my body, difficult for me to show, right. It is a deep muscle of the neck, because sternocleidomastoid is a muscle that I can show like this. It is a superficial muscle, right. I can show superficial means something that is at the surface, deep means something that is not at the surface, something that is below other muscles that are difficult to access and show, for example in this video, right. Deep muscle, one part of the semispinalis capitis is removed to show the other semispinalis capitis. Here is the right side of the semispinalis capitis that is shown, right. Right. What is the purpose? When only one of them is active, its function is to laterally flex and rotate the head to the same side, lateral flexion, that lateral flexion, right. Its origin is at the transverse and articular process of cervical and thoracic vertebra. So, it is starting at the level of cervical and thoracic vertebra and attaches to the occipital bone. So, attaches to the head, right. It is a deep muscle, and the function is to rotate and tilt the head backwards. So, when that muscle is active, so this is a muscle that is at the back of the head, at that neck, deep inside. So, you cannot see it at the surface, it is deep inside but at the back of the neck. So, when that muscle is contracting, I will be able to do that action, right. Head, rotate the head backward, rotates and tilts the head backward like that, right, that function. Then splenius capitis, this again starts at the level of cervical and thoracic vertebra, origin is at the level of cervical and thoracic vertebra, and attachment or insertion is at the level of temporal bone of the and occipital bone. Right. Temporal bone means mastoid process. Right. Let us go back and check this splenius capitis, right. That is that muscle, that muscle, or here it is shown here, right. Relatively small muscle, unlike the sternocleidomastoid, this is relatively difficult to find, but is still not a very deep muscle. Okay. Yes. What is the purpose? What is the function? The function is rotates and tilts head to the side and tilts the head backward. So, one function is performed by more than one muscle. This is not new to us, right. For example, we saw in the case of elbow flexion, brachialis, brachioradialis, biceps, all of them perform the same function, right, elbow flexion. Right. And individually when they work, only one side when it is active laterally flexes and rotates the head to the same side. When both of them are active, it extends the head, right. Then you have longismus capitis. Longismus capitis, it is again origin is cervical and thoracic vertebra at the transverse and articular process. Right. Insertion is also approximately the same location at the temporal bone, which is this muscle, is it not? Deep muscle is somewhat difficult to identify. Deep muscle, longismus capitis, this one, right. That muscle is relatively hard to identify from the surface. Right. What is the purpose? What is the action? Individually lateral flexion and rotates the head to the same side, and when both of them are active, extension of the head. Right. So, the movement is rotates and tilts the head to the side and tilts the head backward. That is the function of this longismus capitis. So, these are the muscles that are responsible for movement at the level of the neck or movement of the head. Turns out that this has a very important evolutionary purpose, is it not? If or when we were hunters and gatherers, if a predator animal is coming, is approaching and you are hearing some noise that a predator animal is approaching, you will have to turn back and look in various directions and accordingly take action. So, a very important function and a crucial advantage for humans is that they are able to stand about 6 feet tall and with their vision able to see any approaching predator in the savanna, in the grassland. When the approaching predator is coming, you are in a position to view from a relatively tall, from a relatively higher elevation, right? You are able to get that vision, and that head, which is why balancing and viewing of that head in various directions becomes absolutely crucial for survival, because if you do not look in the direction of the predator, it is likely that you will be taken out. So, crucial evolutionary function of head movement in this. Then you have the large muscle or the group of muscles or the set of all muscles that together constitute the so called erector spinae group of muscles. Right. This is not a single muscle, this is the muscle that is found in the back. It is a large muscle or large set of muscles, however we want to call this. This is essentially what constitutes the back, the so called muscle mass at the back is provided for by this single muscle or group of muscles called erector spinae. Okay. What is the function? Extensor of the vertebral column, doing that, but that is not the only function. There are many different small things that each one of these subcomponent of this erector spinae does, which we will see in some level of detail. Right. Also, it is responsible for control of other movements such as flexion, lateral flexion and rotation. So, flexion at the elbow, lateral flexion and rotation. All of this are possible to be controlled by co-activation of the corresponding erector spinae muscle or that part of the erector spinae muscle on the other side. Right? Something to keep in mind. It can be divided into 3 broad groups, right? Iliocostalis group, longissimus group and spinalis group. The iliocostalis group is the group that is placed most laterally. You see that one, iliocostalis. At the level of the neck is called as iliocostalis cervicis. At the level of the thorax it is called iliocostalis thoracis. And then at the level of the lumbar vertebra it is called as iliocostalis lumborum. Those that are present most lateral from the axis are called iliocostalis group. Okay. And those that are present at the level of the neck are called iliocostalis cervicis. Those that are present at the level of the thorax is called iliocostalis thoracis. At the level of the lumbar vertebra or the lumbar region, they are called iliocostalis lumborum. Right. Those that are present slightly more medially when compared with the iliocostalis, but not at the most medial level or at the intermediate level between most medial and the most lateral are called longissimus group. Already we saw one of these muscles, that is the longissimus capitis. Right. This longissimus capitis is at the level of the head. You have this longissimus capitis at the level of the head. Then at the level of the neck you have longissimus cervicis. Then at the level of the thorax you have longissimus thoracis. Okay. Then you have the muscles that are most medially located. Okay. These muscles constitute the spinalis group. This is at the level of the spine. Right. These are not longissimus capitis, longissimus cervicis and longissimus thoracis, but rather spinalis capitis, spinalis. There is a little mistake in this, that is okay, we will correct this. Spinalis capitis, spinalis cervicis and spinalis thoracis. Right. the capitis is located at the level of the head, cervicis is located at the level of the neck, and thoracis is located at the level of the thorax. So, the most medial one, for example, is the spinalis muscle, and at the level of the thorax is called spinalis thoracis, right. The intermediate one at the level of the neck is called longissimus cervicis. So, let us review this. Those that are located most lateral are called iliocostalis. Those that are located at an intermediate level in the mediolateral direction, those that are located intermediately between medial and lateral are called as longissimus group, and those that are located closest to the spine or most medial is called spinalis group. Those that are located at the level of the neck are always called cervicis. Those that are located at the level of the thorax are called thoracis. Those that are located at the level of the lumbar region are called lumborum. This is possible only, this is applicable only at the level of iliocostalis. Intermediate and the spinalis or longissimus and spinalis, intermediate and the most medial muscles are called longissimus and spinalis. Those that are located at the level of the head are called capitis. Those that are located at the level of the neck are called cervicis, and those that are located at the level of the thorax are called thoraces. So, which is how we are getting these names. Okay. Remember that in the third group it is spinalis capitis, spinalis cervicis and spinalis thoracis. These are the various muscles that together constitute the erector spinae group, right, the largest muscle, and those that form the muscle mass at the back, right, muscle mass at the back. Right. So, with this we come to the end of this video. So, in this video we saw muscles that move the head and muscles that are present at the neck and the back, which is the, and in particular we looked at some good detail about the various sub parts of the erector spinae group. Thank you very much for your attention.